back at it on the Dodge Ram project. So far we've got the block cleaned up and honed and decked out. I got the crank. I finally, one video you saw was probably polishing up on it a little bit. I finally got that is all done. I'm going to start miking journals, getting my measurements for that. We're gonna put, I do have, I'll show you quick here. So I do have my my main bearings showed up, so I can put the main bearings in the block, and then I can mic the crank, and I can mic the block, and we can check our oil clearances. I also got my camshaft showed up the other night. I'm waiting on a set of OEM. Dodge kind of makes, pretty good stuff, but that's in the way. But I went with factory OEM Mopar non-MDS lifters. They obviously make a pretty good lifter. It goes thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of miles. So that's the lifter I'm going to run, is the OEM non-MDS lifter. But cam showed up last night. I got my pistons. I can actually start gapping rings, setting ring gaps. I'm going to measure skirts. We'll get out the dial bore gauge and we'll check bores. And I can't really change that unless I get the block honed or re-honed to size. I already went through and did a hone job on it. See if I can get a good shot here. She looks pretty good. The deck cleaned up real nice. No imperfections. I do have like a machinist straight edge, so I can check for low spots with feeler gauge and, kind of home garage machine work. Check it out. Cam bearings in this block all look pretty freaking good. This was a low mile block that spun a rod bearing, so I got lucky. So I got a lot of measuring to do, a lot of fit and finish work to do. I'm waiting on my connecting rods, should be here. Well, actually today they might show up. And connecting rods, main bearings are due on Monday. Lifters are due on Tuesday. So we got a lot of stuff coming and going here. But today, what I got to do is this. I just got done disassembling these cylinder heads. These are actually, these are a set of eagle heads. I'm not going to run the heads that were actually on the truck. I don't know if they're damaged or not. That motor was a reman motor. The way it broke the rod, I don't know if a piston hit the head, wrecked anything, but I'm not going to run those heads just because it's time to actually just do like some upgrades. So instead of running the 6.1 head, I'm actually going to run a set of these eagle heads. These are off of the later 09 and newer Hemis. Pretty big freaking ports, if you can see here. My hand compared to that port, that's like a 2-inch square. But I got to return that stand that my block showed up on. Reluctor wheels going on a different motor. Right now I'm going to head to work, and I'm going to give these things a quick little acid bath and get them cleaned up. And today we are going to get these heads redone. I'm very fortunate to have good friends that know how to do lots of cool shit, and I happen to be friends with one of the owners, or I should say overtaking owner of one of the biggest like Mopar hot rod shops in town. So he's taking me in on a Saturday and going to redo my heads for me. So that means I can get going on assembly that much faster. I'll still have to track down an intake. My truck intake won't quite work with these ports. It might bolt up, but the ports don't really match, and there's O-ring seals that I don't think they match up quite right from the the research I've been doing. This combo is kind of not really something I've seen done anywhere yet. So kind of breaking ground here from what I can tell. And I do a lot of reading and research, and I'm just not seeing people doing what I'm doing here. Maybe that's a bad sign. I don't know. But the shit usually ends up working out somehow. But anyway, we're going to get going on getting these things cleaned up and then off to the machine shop. So it's been about 4 days since we last left off, where I was getting the heads kind of redone, did a little quick valve job on them, got them surfaced. That actually turned out really good, and it was pretty cool because it's a buddy of mine's shop, and he actually got the machines all set up for me to actually like kind of run me through how the setup process goes, and I actually got to do my own valve job. So we were grinding valves and cutting seats, and it actually turned out pretty cool. But a bunch of parts have been showing up. I got a bench full of stuff back there. I've been doing a little bit of assembly on the block. As I've been taking the motor apart, that's in the truck still. I don't have a hoist yet. I'm gonna hopefully have that this weekend. But right now the short block is all that's left in the truck, and all that's holding that in is a couple bell housing bolts. But as I've been taking stuff off the truck, as far as like little sensors and little, like oil galley plugs, just little things, because that block was bare. Well, it came as a short block, but all the accessories, sensors, everything were off of it. Anything they needed to put replace that motor in the car that it was in. So it's been kind of fun actually putting all the sensors and everything back on that thing and kind of transferring everything over and seeing how much of a direct swap this has been so far. I have crank is over here. I have pistons, cam, lifters. I got a set of heads. I have head gaskets on the way. I ordered a high volume oil pump, which actually is kind of a cool piece because they just released that for these, pre-Eagle motors, the 08 and older. There was no real oil pump options other than stock or high pressure. High pressure doesn't really solve much of an issue. They have very low volume stock, and low volume can also lead to low pressure. But at idle, these motors are like, when they're hot, like 20 pounds of oil pressure. They're notorious for eating cams if they got a lot of idle time on them. So we actually got ourselves a nice quality high volume pump that'll keep, almost 2.5 times that oil amount at idle. So that should keep any issues from popping up from oil starvation at idle. But what's going on back here? These are the heads that were on the motor, these two here. Those are considered the pre-Eagle heads. They're just stock 5.7 Ram heads. Came on just about every 5.7, before 2009. They're not bad heads. You can do a lot with them, but I got these bad boys. These are considered the Eagle heads, and I'll show you the difference just visually offhand, what the difference is, so you can identify these things and why I'm making the switch to run these on the truck. So I'll show you that. So basically what we got going on here, first thing visually on the bottom side of the head is this is kind of just gross, but you'll see the chamber size here, how it comes way out here. There's a little bit of a kick out for like the little spark plug pocket, we'll call right there. Maybe you can see a little better here how much, it's like a big grapefruit shaped combustion chamber. We'll go over to these and you can see right away, this is considered a closed chamber head. That other head, that chamber came out here. It was kind of tapered in. So this is a smaller CC combustion chamber. Not ideal for a boosted application, but I'll show you why this head is better in general otherwise. But that difference, I'm actually going to soften these chambers up a little bit, and I'll run a little bit thicker than stock head gasket. That'll get me back that CC difference that we're losing going to the different heads. But I'm going to flip these over and you'll see the big difference here. So here's the business side of things. As you can see, my stock ports, not quite square. They actually kind of taper down, a little bit smaller at the bottom than there at the top. But then that little notch is actually where the injector kind of clears. The injector would go like this way, straight down. But look at the difference to this port here. This is the Eagle head. That's almost 2 inches square. So obviously, I'm going to use this head. But this is why, like, I don't want to get into the sciences of it, but I feel when you got a port that's this good, you don't need as a big of a cam to get as much shit in your motor. So I'm running low boost anyways, but I just feel like at a low boost application, that port is actually going to be more advantageous than that one. Same amount of RPM, same amount of, supercharger turning, we'll say. I think that will accept more with less effort. But yeah, these, obviously valve job's all done on these, surfaced up. I'm ready to start assembling. Got my parts here. Other heads in a bag. Only drawback is with these heads is I do have to run a different intake, which isn't the end of the world, but my stock truck manifold, you can see where the O-ring would have sealed. that O-ring basically would be right on the edge of these ports. So my old intake wouldn't actually seal up on these heads. You could put the, this intake for these heads would work on that setup. Obviously that head port would be smaller than the intake. It would bolt on there, but it won't go vice versa just because of the size of these won't allow that O-ring to seal. And on the back side, this will be hard to see back here. You can see these ports here. This was more of a square port pre-Eagle, and these are more of a D-shaped port. So these actually work a little bit better too. So I will have to go with a different exhaust setup. Not the end of the world. Drawback right now is connecting rods. So on Saturday, I managed to get the heads all done, ready to go, and I got the delivery notification that my rods had showed up, which awesome, because that would have given me the rest of Saturday and Sunday to basically start gapping rings, getting all this stuff sort of squared away. Pistons and rings are in that box there. So I could get my ring gaps all set, and then Monday I was to go back to the same shop where I got my heads situated. They're going to balance my rotating assembly for me just to confirm everything's good. So I had to take the crank back there behind those heads, take the crank, these pistons, and my rods that showed up. And actually, I only needed one rod and piston and ring combo. But I get home and I opened I picked up the box the rods were in, the brown shipping box, and I could hear them clanking around. That's never a good sign. So I get the box the rods are in out of the brown shipping box. They're Eagle rods. Open the box, and there's just a pile of rods in a box, all dinged to shit. Borderline, I wouldn't use them. They're dinged up that bad from just basically tumbling around in a box being shipped. I get to looking closer and realize there's only 6 rods in the box. So somebody bothered to take an open box of rods off the shelf. They didn't fall out of the cardboard and shipping. The box is all perfect. Took a box of rods off the shelf, handled them in some fashion, heard them clanking around, and still thought it was okay to put them in a brown box, tape that shut, and then send them to me. Somebody thought that was a good idea. So I'm a little irritated at that now because it's now Wednesday night and those rods showed up Saturday. I had called and left a voicemail and an email Saturday, so they knew right away that I had tried to get a hold of them the moment those things showed up. I knew they wouldn't be able to get a hold of me until Monday. They're closed. No correspondence on Monday. I had to finally call, and I got directed basically back to the website to fill out a damaged parts return form that led nowhere. So now here we are. Tomorrow will be 4th day of no action on this place having my money, me not having any rods I can use, and not even sending me like a return authorization number or something so I can get the other rods sent back. At this point, 4 days in, I could have had a set of rods from somebody else if they act. So this whole thing is going to shit in a hurry, and I'm not happy about it. However, I do have some stuff I can do now, so I'm still gonna gap my rings. I can mock up. I can get a head assembled, and I can mock up the valve train and measure for push rods, and I get push rods coming. So there is some stuff to do. So I apologize. There's not more hands-on mechanical stuff to show you. Gapping rings is going to be an all-night process, and it's really nothing to spectate. So this is kind of more of just an update on where we stand video with the Ram 6.1 supercharged project. Bike still hanging out, chilling, ready to go. I think in the next week I'm going to have some time off of work. If I can't get any motor work done on the Ram, that's going to lead to I'm going to be spending a little more time on that because at some point my hands are going to be tied if they don't send me some rods, and I got to turn this into a battle. But I'm basically, I'm being held hostage over a set of rods I can't use. And yeah, so that's kind of where we stand. I'm going to get going on getting set up so I can do some file fitting on some piston rings. But before I do that, I'll give you a quick run around on the block. I cleaned this thing up in my driveway, and I did the old dingle ball hone and got her cleaned up, and I'm pretty impressed with how it turned out. So as you can see, them cylinders turned out awesome. I decked it off pretty nice. Lifter bores I honed out slightly, just touched them. I got my MDS plugs installed. That's these guys here. So no MDS cylinders. I can't use the MDS system with that cam anyways. Cam bearing, this was a low mileage, I think I said already. This was a low mileage motor that this, what came out of. Cam bearings look virtually new. I do have my studs in already. So I got my main caps and my cross bolts. All ARP stuff all in there already. You can see I've been, talking about the sensors, I've been just kind of putting things in as I take them off. So this block is clean and ready for assembly. We just need some more parts to show up. So the other thing I'm actually kind of excited about is these lifters. So these are just factory Mopar lifters, but there's two options when you get lifters from factory Dodge or factory Mopar. Any manual transmission car came with non-MDS lifters, but the Hellcats came with, I'm just going to pop one out of the rail here. The Hellcats came with a non-MDS lifter, but it has a bigger needle bearing in it. And if I can get this to focus, go here. If you just look through the top here, you can actually see the needle bearings in there. That's the bigger upgraded bearing. So if you're a Mopar guy and you're doing lifters, go ahead and get yourself the Hellcat lifters. It's got a bigger bearing in the roller than the standard 5.7 manual trans car non-MDS lifter. So pretty excited that those actually showed up how I wanted them to. I thought you guys might get a kick out of some of the carnage from what actually happened to the Ram. It's dark outside, or I'd take the camera out there and show you, and it's raining for one. But I got a couple pictures I'm going to show you of how, once I got the cylinder heads off the motor, what I found. And the fact that this one piston is in my garage still while the short block is in the truck should tell you what I found. You can see the little end of the connecting rod is still attached to the piston, as well as the big end of the connecting rod is still attached to the crank. That's why I still had oil pressure. So I'm actually missing the center, like 5 inches of that connecting rod. It's gone somewhere. I noticed the heat shield on the transmission underneath was bent out. I don't know what would have hit that, other than maybe that center piece of the rod. It might have actually ejected itself out of the hole. The hole is a good, I don't know if it'll come through on camera. It's hard to get down there and get a good picture of it and actually relate the size of it. It's probably good 2.5 inch diameter hole, just a perfect round hole plunked right in the side of number 4 cylinder. It's comical, but I got a couple of pictures I'll put in here, and you can see what I saw when I first pulled the head off. I'm hoping that because the big end of the rod is still attached to the crank, I'm hoping that means that crank is still good. I don't need it for anything, but if somebody else, in the Mopar world or locally, has some mishap or whatever and they need a crank, hopefully I got a good crank to give them. I wouldn't even charge them for this. It's just a stock crank. Because that one I got back there is actually, I'm sorry, I'm misleading you right now. That crank is the one I'm going to use. The crank that came in this block that had a spun rod bearing, that crank, I'm going to have it recut, and it's a forged, factory forged crank, so it's a nice piece. That crank in a 5.7 block, I believe, makes it's like a 368. Howdy.
Welcome back to the channel.
So Mike showed up, my buddy, that helped him out with quite a bit of stuff. But we had a little BS session while I was assembling one cylinder head back there. This video is going to be kind of a mess of randomness. I promise the next one will be on track with actually having some work to do. I kind of already got an idea of what I want to do. But for now, this one, I'm going to end it as just kind of an update of where we stand with parts and whatnot. So stay tuned for the next one, and we'll actually be doing some more technical and assembly and some measuring and all that good business. So thanks for hanging around.